Someone else is cuter than you and makes me want to protect them. You know, men are creatures who want to protect the weaker sex. You get that, right?
Those words were spoken by my husband, with a know-it-all look on his face. When I confronted him about his affair that I stumbled upon, he kept making excuses and finally became defiant, asking for my agreement with the "you understand, right?" There was nothing I could agree with. Moreover, he had no intention of leaving me nor breaking up with his affair partner. There was no way I could continue being married to such a man. I took my things and went back to my parents' house, venting to my brother. After listening to my story, my brother showed a full-faced smile.
So that's good.
What's good about it? Hearing "that's good" as the first response after telling him about the affair was infuriating. I yelled at him in spite of myself, but he kept smiling. Then I noticed a fierce anger in my brother's eyes, not matching his smile. My name is Rolla. I'm 31 years old. Jim and I were colleagues at the same company. Since joining, we consulted each other about work and supported each other, becoming friends who could talk about anything. We often went out for drinks, deepening our relationship by talking, not just about work, but also about personal matters. A few months later, after a company drinking party, it became just the two of us going home, and that's when Jim confessed his feelings. Drawn to Jim's bright, sociable, and incredibly kind and easy to talk to nature, I didn't hesitate to accept, and we started dating. Even while dating, we consulted about work and would have meals together after work, smoothly continuing our relationship. Both of us loved seeing different sceneries, so we went on trips on weekends, and even traveled abroad during long vacations. Spending more and more time with Jim, I found myself increasingly drawn to him, and eventually I wanted to be with him forever. Then, in our 5th year joining the company, Jim surprised me with a proposal. I remember not being able to stop my tears of joy when he opened the ring box in a private room of a glamorous restaurant. There was no need to refuse, and I accepted the proposal right there. Sharing a common love for breathtaking views, especially of the sea, where we had many memories, we decided to have our wedding with the ocean in sight. Blessed with good weather, it was the best day. Loving my job and wanting to talk more about work with Jim, I planned to continue working at the same place after marriage. But working in the same environment as a married couple proved to be difficult, so I transferred to a different branch where I could continue with similar job responsibilities. 3 years into our marriage, we're still happily married. We go out to eat several times a month and travel a few times a year. We have a good relationship with Jim's parents and lead a happy married life. To outsiders, we must have seemed like the perfect couple, and I felt the same way. However, that perception only lasted until this day. One day, since the next day was a holiday, Jim and I had planned to dine out leisurely after work as usual. But when work was winding down, I received a message from Jim.
Sorry, Rolla, something came up today, and I've been invited to dinner by a client. They've been really good to us lately, and I couldn't say no, so I can't make it to our dinner.
I was disappointed, but that's okay. We can go to the restaurant another time. I was looking forward to trying it out. When I suggested this,
Yeah, I'll make it up to you for sure. I'll probably be late, so go ahead and sleep without me. See you.
And he hurried off. Just as I was about to finish up work and head home, my phone rang. It was my friend Mary. Hello, Rolla. Are you free tonight? Want to grab a drink? It's been a while. That's perfect. Jim's out for dinner with a client tonight, so I'm free. Mary is my best friend. She works in a different department at the same company. She gave a speech at our wedding and sometimes comes over to our house. Since she and Jim are also batch mates, we've met up a few times. The three of us, and it's always fun. We casually drink when we can meet up like today. We decided to meet at the nearest station close to my home, so I left the office and headed there. The train timing was perfect, and I arrived at the station quite early. but Mary was already waiting. Sorry to keep you waiting. Long time no see. I just got here too. We chatted a bit and headed to the restaurant. There's a fairly large entertainment district on the way from the nearest station to our home. We entered a restaurant just off the main street of that district. Starting with a toast with beer, we began catching up as usual. How have you been recently? Is Jim doing well? Yeah, he's fine. Same as always, I guess. Work has settled down a bit, so we're not as exhausted as before. How about you, Mary? Were you working around here today? Yeah, exactly. This area is part of my territory, so I come here occasionally. On the contrary, I've been swamped with client meetings since the beginning of the month. Totally worn out. At this rate, no man will come near me. Mary is the very definition of a career woman. Beautiful face and figure, but her straightforward personality and strong will seem to keep men at bay. After sharing what's on our minds and feeling motivated to keep pushing forward, we left the restaurant in the usual cheerful mood. This entertainment district has such a great vibe. Mind if we take a little walk back? To which I replied, sure, let's walk off the alcohol, and I'll walk you to the station. So we decided to stroll through the entertainment district towards the station. Our conversation continued as we walked. Rolla, you're lucky. You found a good husband, and your married life seems to be going well. Are you thinking about having kids soon? Well, we don't really talk about it much. We both love our jobs, and I worry about how pregnancy might affect my work. We think someday, but it's hard to find the right timing. As we talked and walked, a certain restaurant came into view. It was the restaurant Jim and I were supposed to dine at today. Its windows were made of glass, allowing a view into the dimly lit, elegant interior. The orange chandeliers inside were probably dimmed on purpose. Just as I thought, I'd like to come here next time. I spotted a familiar figure. I stopped in my tracks. Rolla, what's wrong? Unable to respond to Mary, I kept my focus on the restaurant. In my line of sight was Jim. Sitting across the table from him was an unfamiliar woman. She seemed a bit younger than me, wearing clothes that exposed a lot of skin. Jim had said he was dining with a client today, but the woman sitting opposite him didn't seem like a work-related acquaintance. They were chatting and laughing. Isn't that Jim? What's going on? Mary seemed to have noticed Jim inside the restaurant, too. I didn't know what to do, shocked. Seeing my reaction, Mary spoke up. Rolla, maybe you should confront him directly. Yeah, you're right. I took out my mobile phone from my bag and took a photo of Jim and the unfamiliar woman. As I calmed down, anger started to well up. Mary suggested, Do you want me to come with you to confront him? He might be more likely to tell the truth if it's both of us. As we reached the station, Thank you, but it's a family matter. I'll talk to him myself. But I declined. After parting ways with Mary, I struggled to contain my growing anger on the way home. About an hour after I got home, Jim returned. I'm home. Welcome back. How was your dinner with the client? It was tough. They wanted to go to a second place because they drink a lot, but I guess I made a good impression. Right after Jim finished speaking, I showed him the photo on my mobile phone. Is this the person from the client side? Quite young, isn't she? Her outfit doesn't seem suitable for work. Did she change before meeting you? Why? You didn't follow me, did you? Of course not. I was out with Mary. We just happened to see you on our way back. Is she really a client? Which company does she work for? Having dinner in such a fancy restaurant? Well, What, can't answer? She's not someone you need to hide from me, right? I'm sorry. Sorry? Are you cheating? Is this woman your affair partner? Answer me. Yes. I broke down crying. Why? Why is this happening? I thought we were doing well. It's your fault.
You're always busy with work and take care of home, but I wanted you to pay more attention to me. You are strong and independent. But that girl is cute and makes me want to protect her. I eventually found it more enjoyable to be with her than with you."
Hearing those words, I was devastated. Did Jim no longer have feelings for me? He's clearly fallen for his affair partner. I would have preferred it if he had just said it was just for one night, or only about physical attraction. I couldn't stand it any longer, and packed the essentials before storming out of the house. Dragging my carry-on, I barely caught the last train home to my parents' house. The journey home felt longer than usual. I can't remember what I was thinking. Maybe I was too hurt to think about anything at all. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of my parents' house. I had a key, but since I hadn't called ahead, I rang the doorbell. My brother David opened the door. "David?"
"It's been a while. What are you doing here at this hour?"
David is all about his work. After graduating, he worked for a major corporation for 3 years before starting his own business. His sales have been steadily increasing, and now he's the president of a company with dozens of employees. He hardly ever comes home, and he even missed my wedding because of an important business deal. I was told by our parents that he got married a year ago, but they didn't have a ceremony, so I only briefly met his wife and didn't have a deep connection with her. This was my first reunion with my brother in years. "What are you doing here, David? How are Mom and Dad?"
"What am I doing here, you ask? It's my parents' house, too. So I thought I'd come back and do some filial piety for Dad and Mom. By the way, they're currently on a trip to Hawaii, using the travel vouchers I gave them. Didn't expect to be house-sitting."
His cheerful nature hasn't changed. A bit too carefree, perhaps, but he's the type to make bold moves. I bet his employees find it a great place to work.
"So, Rolla, what brings you here at this time?"
I was so surprised to see my brother that I had forgotten why I'd come back home. "Sorry, I had some trouble at home and needed somewhere to stay for a while."
"Of course, it's not my house, but it's fine. Your room is still available. Come on in. Once you've settled down, I'll make some coffee. I'm here to listen."
I felt comforted by my brother's warmth. I decided to take a shower first, leaving my luggage in my room. I felt a bit refreshed, but couldn't calm down. Anger was bubbling up inside me. When I entered the living room, my brother was watching TV.
"Feeling refreshed? I'll make some coffee then."
He turned off the TV, and, as he said, I sat down and began to sip coffee while recounting today's events. How we had been getting along as a couple, how we had made plans to go out for dinner as usual, how he canceled our plans, saying he had dinner with a client, the drinking session I had with Mary, and while showing the photos on my mobile phone to my brother, I said, "On the way back from drinking, I saw Jim and this woman at the restaurant we were supposed to go to. When I confronted Jim, after he came home, he admitted to the affair, saying he found this girl cuter and felt more protective over her." I told him through tears. My brother listened to the entire story while staring at my mobile phone. After I finished, he looked up and said something I never expected. I thought he would comfort me, tell me to leave such a man, be on my side. However, with a beaming smile, he said,
"Rolla, that's great."
I involuntarily slammed the table and stood up. "What's great about it?" Saying that, I returned to my room. Why would he say that? Why did he think it was great? Just thinking about it made me angrier. I shouldn't have told him. Regretting having shared with my brother, I laid down on the bed. I didn't want to go back to a home where Jim was, so I stayed at my parents' house. Since that day, my brother and I didn't engage in unnecessary conversations. Commuting to work from my parents' house during weekdays was tough, as it took twice as long. I spent the days pondering the difficulty of getting a divorce and claiming compensation. A week later, on the weekend, I decided to relax in my room and play mobile games for the first time in a while. Just as I was thinking about getting some lunch, The house's doorbell rang. Who could it be? Having visitors was rare, so I went to the door. There stood Jim, apologizing deeply to my brother. Why? Shouldn't he be apologizing to me? Then I heard my brother's voice.
Never thought the other party would be you. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Jim seemed to be apologizing to my brother as usual.
Betty is cuter and more worth protecting than Rolla, huh?
Betty? The only Betty I know is my brother's wife. I was confused about what was going on when my brother continued.
Recently, Betty has been acting fidgety and obviously keeping secrets from me. Her expression wasn't good when I talked to her. I gradually started to suspect she was cheating. I was thinking about hiring a detective agency when Rolla came back home. I was shocked when Rolla showed me a photo of the person he was cheating with, and it turned out to be Betty. I was sad that it was indeed an affair, but at the same time, I was surprised that the other party was a family member. You never know what might happen. This will make it easier to claim compensation.
I was speechless. Jim's affair partner was my brother's wife, Betty. The woman Jim was dining with wore heavy makeup, and I didn't recognize her at all. It's been a while since I met Betty, and I didn't remember her wearing so much makeup.
When David contacted me, I truly felt sorry. I will cut off contact with Betty from now on, so please forgive me.
It seems my brother had informed Jim about the affair. My brother noticed me standing there.
Rolla, good timing. Did you hear our conversation?
Yeah, most of it.
I see. We easily got information on Jim here and Betty, the affair partner. This will make it easy to claim compensation. It's good that you came back home.
My brother said to me with a smile. So that's what it was. Then I understood the meaning of what my brother had said a week ago. Why he had said it was good at that time. What my brother felt at that time. He had spoken to me, but maybe those words were meant for himself as well. Thinking about my brother's feelings, I decided to divorce Jim and claim compensation.
Rolla, it was my fault. Forgive me. I can't afford to pay any compensation you asked for.
I ignored Jim pleading for help.
I'll contact you later with the details, so be prepared,
my brother said, and kicked Jim out of the house. Afterward, my brother demanded a divorce and compensation from Betty. At first, Betty seemed reluctant, but after talking about Jim, she gave in and accepted the demands. I also demanded a divorce and compensation from Jim. Jim readily agreed, probably because my brother had already made it clear to him. When the divorce was finally settled, I received a call. It was from Jim's mother. Expecting to be yelled at for why we divorced, I nervously answered the phone to hear an apology. It was an apology call, saying they were truly sorry for what Jim had done. It seems Jim blamed the divorce on Betty, and Betty blamed Jim for causing the divorce, leading to their breakup. The parents acknowledged numerous times for their unworthy son. They said they had disowned Jim. Hearing this from my in-laws made me feel somewhat relieved. Jim is now disowned by his parents, with no one to rely on, all alone. I decided to start anew. Then one day, Jim came to my parents' house asking for a reduction in the compensation.
Please, can you reduce the compensation? I quit my job and have no income coming in.
That's none of my business. Do you understand how I felt being cheated on? There's no way I'll reduce the compensation until my feelings are healed. Get out, I said, and turned him away. But the next week, and the week after that, he kept coming to my parents' house asking for a reduction in the compensation. No matter how many times you come, the compensation won't change. If you keep coming here, I'll call the police. I responded calmly. However, Jim seemed to think I wouldn't really call the police on him. His demands at the doorstep went from wanting to reduce the compensation to wanting to stop paying altogether, and he even offered reconciliation from a strangely superior stance. When I used my mobile phone to call the police right in front of him, Jim's demeanor changed, and he dashed out of the house. The police told me not to open the door anymore, and I decided to use an intercom with a monitor, so I could pretend not to be home if it was Jim. Jim, apparently fearful of the police,
started sending long messages and making phone calls. It finally quieted down when I changed my email address and phone number. Jim tried to come to the branch where I work for no reason, and even begged a close coworker to get in touch with me, becoming a nuisance at both the main office and the branch. Then I heard from Mary. Mary, who works close to Jim's department at headquarters, has been keeping an eye on Jim's situation for me. Jim's divorce from me became known because he asked a colleague to intervene, and his harassment was discovered because people saw him passing in front of my house on their way to work. And when he realized that no one around him was on his side, he began to feel uncomfortable with the glances and attitudes, leading him to voluntarily leave his job. He also struggled to find employment afterwards, and was apparently rejected by many companies. Eventually, he pleaded with the HR department to rehire him at a company he joined out of desperation, which turned out to be a black company. Having left all his work behind for his own reasons, there was no place for Jim when he tried to return conveniently. He was turned down flatly and ended up in a difficult situation, commuting from the first train to the last, doing unpaid overtime every day. On the other hand, Betty also contacted me several times, wondering if there was any way to make amends. However, my brother understood there was no love left. Like Jim, Betty also ended up quitting her job after her workplace learned about the situation, fleeing as if running away. After the divorce, she begged my brother to reconsider, claiming she couldn't pay the compensation because she'd end up poor. Since she only ever talked about money, my brother realized she was only after his wealth. Betty refused to pay even a cent, saying, "If there's nothing, there's nothing." Of course, my brother didn't let it go and contacted Betty's parents. Her parents, who didn't even know she was divorced, were very flustered and apologized, paying the money on her behalf. Betty thought it was all settled with that, but her parents were furious, saying they had only fronted the money and demanded it back. Now Betty is working in harsh conditions every day at a farm run by her parents. Afterwards, my brother and I started to keep in touch more regularly. We share updates and how we've been feeling lately, appreciating the novelty and the value of family, something we hadn't done much before. My brother is still busy with work, but seems to be enjoying his days. It wasn't easy for me to recover right away. The shock of the affair and the change in my living situation due to the end of my marriage was stressful. However, with lots of encouraging words from family, bosses, coworkers, and friends, I now see it as a valuable experience and have a positive outlook. Currently, I'm enjoying single life without considering marriage.